Welcome to The Decision from Nashville EO, where you will hear the rest of the story after tough decisions were made by entrepreneurs who faced adversity and lived to tell about it.
Congratulations. You have found The Decision, a podcast by EO Nashville. We, Robert and I, are interviewing entrepreneurs, most of which are EO Nashville members, who make tough decisions in the daily grind of running a business. And so we use EO Nashville and the forum to do that. I have with me today my partner in crime, Mr. Robert Hartline.
Thank you for having me once again, Eric.
You're still on the payroll, man?
Still cashing them checks.
That's right. They're big, aren't they?
Big checks.
I tell you what, double your salary.
For me?
Yeah,
For
yeah,
real?
yeah. We'll just double both of our salaries.
Let's do it.
Yeah. And our guest today is Gary Wisniewski, fellow EO member. Gary, thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, we're looking forward to hearing what you've got to say. I know every time I talk to you, I walk away with some nugget of wisdom, like what we were just talking about before the show. It's always a pleasure to talk to you because you've got the same color hair I do. There's always something that you've got in your back pocket to share, and I appreciate that about you.
Yeah, it's amazing what happens when you start coloring your hair. All these brain cells open up.
Exactly. All right. Well, let's kick this off.
Now, Landmark Homes, how long have you had your company, Gary?
Moved to Nashville in '89, so it's 35 years, right at 32 years.
Wow. In those 32 years, so you did not have a place like EO for a while because you've been a member for, 5 years now?
That's correct.
Yeah. So how did you get help before you just did it on your own?
Most of the help was through friends and family that I knew that were in businesses, and also talking to teachers from the past. But it's still a little tough because there's not a lot of friends and family that do own their own business and go through all the same struggles as a business owner. Everybody has input, everybody has an opinion, but they don't really have the heart to give you input as to what might help you down the road.
That's perspective on how to deal with an employee or how to make that next decision. And what is a decision that you have had growing your business early on that was a tough one when you started out? Was there ever a time that you had a pivotal moment that you had to make a decision that was life or death with the business?
Absolutely. So 3 years in, I got served with my first lawsuit. It was the first lawsuit I ever had in my life. I figured that was the end of my business and my savings of 28 years. And so I had to make a decision if I was going to fight the lawsuit or just cave. Financially, my decision was made for me because I couldn't cave because I couldn't pay the bill that I was being sued for. So I kind of bucked up and we went to court and I won hands down and realized that the court system is not as fun as it appears on TV. And number two, it's also not as scary as it is on TV. It's real people doing the right thing.
Right. And did that experience save you from future courtroom appearances?
No, it actually put me in there more often. But here's what it did help with. It helped me to get my ducks in a row in all situations. It taught me to make sure that anything I put out there has been vetted. It taught me to make sure that everything I do is fair and equitable, that therefore can be defended in the court of law, as long as it's fair and equitable and everybody knew about it. And I'm not going to tell you how many lawsuits I've been through since then because that's staggering. But knock on wood, I've not lost one yet. And it's not because we're brilliant. It's because we learned early on, get your ducks in a row and defend the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've learned recently that it's really important to understand in an agreement how this ends, because everything ends right?
It does.
So if you figure out what that's supposed to look like when it's time for either party, things go smoothly.
Agreed.
Or should.
Agreed.
And can.
I struggle during a lawsuit. Like it puts a shadow around everything I'm doing when I'm going through the process, because I know I'm right, or otherwise I would pay that person, and make it go away. And I've had to pay that person to go away just because I did not have the energy to fight it. But that's been helpful when I've been in those situations to have a group of people to share those stories to, because it feels awfully uncomfortable to have someone suing you. Ugh.
Yeah, you feel alone.
Yeah.
Yep. And and in some cases, I've never had an actual lawsuit, knock on wood. I've come close a couple of times. And yeah, you almost feel like you're being held hostage, because if everybody knew what I have in my head, this would all go away.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So during your time in EO, was there a situation that you brought to your forum that you were struggling with?
Yeah, there sure was. It had to be probably 3 years ago. And it was actually a personal struggle with a family member. But the thing that was interesting with what you just said is you said the lawsuits that you were presented with disrupted everything else you were doing, and it all consumed you. And realize also that when things go awry in a family, regardless if it's spousal, children, parents, that it starts consuming you and it starts changing your decisions on other things where you can't concentrate correctly on what you should, because they're really important life decisions. And it's kind of funny, because being an entrepreneur and being part of EO, being surrounded by a lot of really intelligent people that are struggling with the same issues. The old adage of, I don't know why you can't just leave work at work, is a great attitude for those who are not self-employed. But, hopefully I'll learn one day how to do that. I've not figured that out yet.
Well, you're not the only one. Sometimes I used to get super envious of clocking out.
Oh, yeah.
And clocking out? You serious? That could be a thing? You can clock out, and you really clock out? You can clock out. I haven't figured out how to clock out.
I've looked at it more as turning the volume down in the evening. I mean, I can still hear it in the background, but I hear less of it in my head.
Yeah, what bugs me is when I have to punch back in at 2 a.m.
Oh, yes. Speaking of that, I mean, we all do it. Is there a strategy that you can turn off the chatter of work at 2 a.m? Because I have that happen.
Yeah, I wake up occasionally at 2 to 3 a.m. and the anxiety will kick in. Not like it used to, but yeah.
So what do you do?
I keep telling myself everything's okay. Most of the time, there's no real problem.
Yeah.
It's just I'm in my head. Cash flow might suck, or I've got a personnel problem, or whatever it happens to be. I just go, well, it's time to go back to sleep first of all, because this is not healthy. Forget about it. We'll deal with it in the morning. And sometimes I actually listen.
The one thing I was told by a friend a long time ago, and it has worked for me, is to leave a tablet by the side of the bed and a pen. And when you wake up, you write down what the issue is that woke you up. Is there anything you can do about it right now? Which the answer is probably no. Mm-hmm. Number 2, who would you need to call, or what do you need to do to get this thing moving forward? And at what time are you going to do that? And so my mind then goes, okay, I can't solve it now. I can call this person because their shop opens at 8 o'clock, and I can have the conversation at 8:15. I'm good to sleep until 8:15. I'm good.
There you go.
And it has worked.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing that.
My pleasure.
So what challenge did you have that you brought to forum?
Well, the challenge I had was centered around my mom and her taking a nosedive down a set of stairs. So it started with, as my mom and dad retired, I constantly talked to them about moving here to Nashville. Because having been born and bred in Buffalo, New York, it's a tough life. Regardless of economy and regardless of cost of living, just dealing with shoveling snow for 6 months out of the year in a very cold climate is rough on the body. So I tried to get them to move down to Nashville and tried. They said no. So then I talked to mom and dad about buying a different house because they had an old colonial house, all the bedrooms upstairs, and they weren't old by any means, and they were still very agile, and they were in their 60s and then into their 70s. And I couldn't convince them that they needed to downsize and get to one level living. So anyways, time goes on. Dad gets sick. Dad passes away. So mom's in this house. So I figured, okay, this would be an easier putt because now mom can't take care of the house herself. I can convince her to move down. That was a really hard struggle. It didn't work. And it caused a lot of anxiety between myself and my mom in that I was trying to bully her. And so our relationship was still great. It's fantastic today. But at the same time, it was just this sticking point that I wanted something for her that she did not want. And I couldn't figure out why I couldn't convince her of this. So it ends up that mom flies down the stairs head first in the middle of the night. She got up to get a drink of water, laid in a puddle of blood for over a day, broke her back in 3 places, broke her neck, broke her whole face open, broke her arm. She was in really bad shape. And so the whole conversation that I brought to Forum was, what do you do? I mean, I'm having a hard time convincing her. I'm having a hard time even convincing my 2 sisters that live up there of what the right thing to do is. And so I wanted to bring this to the group. The thing that I found out that was really interesting with the group is most everybody in the group had a similar issue or had experience shares, which is fantastic. So 2 of the folks in the group actually were going through the same thing with parents at that time. One had just been through that issue. One of my 4 members was actually in that business of taking care of elderly folks.
Wow.
And then one of my 4 members was raised in a house with parents who both had disabilities. So all of a sudden I had all these phenomenal experience shares that were real life. And had I not brought that up and had the 5% share of EO Forum, that would have been something that I would have struggled with for quite some time. And it would have affected not only me personally, but my family and my business, because that was something that was a really, really tough decision that was affecting the rest of my life. So it was great to have that ability and that the forum to go ahead and put that on stage and to get some real life experience shares that helped me make a decision to move forward.
Now, when you're in that situation, what was it? What did it feel like to have that challenge with your mom?
It was completely vulnerable, felt completely out of control. My 2 sisters, one is a year older, one is 10 years younger. The older one is a super great individual, but she can't or will not make a decision on anything. And the younger one is, let's say, slightly self-centered, and every decision is based on what's best for her. So with me being 800 miles away, I couldn't physically make that decision. So I felt, one, handcuffed. I felt out of control because I couldn't help my mom with that situation. So yeah, it was a very, very uncomfortable feeling. One, the way I'm wired as a male, 2, as a business owner, as a husband, as a dad, I fix stuff. That's what I do.
Yeah, we're full-time fixers.
I go fix it.
Yeah, you build houses too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're just building and fixing things.
Yeah, and the thing is, I couldn't fix it.
Yeah.
There was no way I could fix this because of physical location and because of other family members involved. So yeah, it was a very, very uncomfortable time.
Yeah, and not having some control because you're kind of used to having your ability to do your thing. Right?
Agreed. Completely agree.
When I, at least for me, when I don't get my way, I get really frustrated because I usually try to generally do what's best in the situation.
Yeah.
And when it's tough to work with our family and how and go that switch from they still look at us as babies, and that's hard for them to have in their mind to do switch.
I experienced all that. So it was difficult for me to realize that there would be a point in my life where mom would be dependent on me, where I would have to make decisions as she did as I grew up that were unfavorable and unpopular, but it was the right decision to make. So realizing that the tables had turned was uncomfortable. Trying to convey that to two sisters was uncomfortable. But it came to the realization, especially talking with a forum group, that when you're put in that position, you've got to make the right decision for the person you're making the decision for, not for anybody else. And if anybody else disagrees with it, that's okay. You can defend it. But as long as the decision was made in the best interest of the person you were making it for, then it's always the right decision.
So knowing that situation, and it's almost a very similar situation that I've dealt with my mom and my dad, navigating, moving them to an assisted living facility, and even moving their stuff out, and then they had plenty of time. They knew when the move was. And then I find myself standing in a dumpster, like going through their shit, trying to pick apart like stuff that they had plenty of time to make a decision on. I mean, when you go from a house to a small place, you got to get rid of stuff. And that didn't feel good going through their stuff. And then it also didn't feel good when mom can't find something that now I'm accused of throwing it away.
Yeah.
Well, what kind of advice do you have for people? Like if you could do that experience again, what would you do differently?
Well, let's start with this. I won't give advice because one of my forum members will tackle me and beat me up, but I'll give you experience shares. How's that?
Okay, let's do that.
Right. So what I learned through the experience was that I've got to understand what the other person needs before I can make a recommendation or try to convince them one way or another. So one thing I did not realize, but I do now, is I knew that my mom was afraid of change, but I didn't realize how much she was afraid of change. The reason I say that is now my mom's in a independent living situation that is comprised of 2 rooms. One is a living room, a kitchenette combination, which is 12 by 20, so 200 and some square feet, and then a bed and bath that's maybe another 100 square feet. So she lives in 300 square feet. And when I go there, I look at it and think, why would you want to live here when you could live with me in Nashville and have so much more? She is so comfortable there because she knows exactly where everything is. She knows exactly where she put everything. She knows exactly where the facilities are, where her bed's going to be, where she's going to eat her meal, what time it's going to be. Had I realized that early on, when Dad passed away and I was trying to get her to do something different and realized that it was just the fear of the change that was holding her back. Of course, there were memories in the house and memories of my dad and memories of the family growing up there. But the real difficulty for Mom was it was a change. This situation may have not ever come up of her falling down the stairs if I would have truly realized what the difficulty was. The difficulty wasn't so much selling the house. The difficulty wasn't, moving away from a neighborhood that she's been in for 40 years. The real difficulty was she can't deal with change. So I may have approached that in a different way.
I lost my father-in-law during COVID, and that was a pretty interesting experience to watch my mother-in-law lose her husband. And she made a decision real early to sell the house and move out. And she was, obviously a lot of grief. But the moment that she moved out of that house into a new house and met new neighbors and new friends, and she just came alive. Like it was, I've been so impressed with how she has she's transformed, in a major way. Watching her do that has given me a lot of hope that, you can face like a tragedy, right? But also she has totally changed, and her growth in the last, she's doing art, she's doing margarita nights, and she's has this whole new life that has really been inspirational to me to watch her go through. And the fact that she decided to do that change and she did not stay in the house, I think that was smart. I feel like some people try to hang on to the house and try to hang on to a past that's just not there anymore.
Yeah, I was talking to my dad the other day. He's 85 and still mows his own grass and won't have it any other way. My brother and I are convinced that he's going to drive the John Deere off the cliff one day, and that's the way he'll want to go out. But he actually asked me the other day. He said, "Do you think I should get a cane?" I said, "Well, it's a change. It's going to be a little different, but you'll have a weapon." And he liked that. If he had to whack somebody with it, he would. But same thing. He's still living at home, and he's hard-headed, but he's still able to take care of himself for the most part. And he's got one of his grandkids living with him, saving some rent right out of college. And it's a great situation. But I know, he had a traumatic health event a couple of years ago. And so my brother and I started down that road with, what's next, and talked to Neil, of course, about it. And it's interesting to take into all that information. There's a lot that you can learn from somebody who deals with that on a regular basis. And it's kind of overwhelming.
It is. We're all busy in our own lives. We're busy with our businesses, busy with our marriages, with our children, with our friends. And when it comes to dealing with parents, at first it seems like a burden because it's just, well, why do I have to deal with this? But as I look at the whole picture unfold, it's inevitable. You should plan for it because it's going to happen. The way I was raised and with my faith, it's the right thing to do because we were all put here to take care of each other. And sometimes tables just turn. It's interesting. I love listening to comedians, and the one just tickled me. He said, "We all start out with a diaper. We all end up with one."
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's true. That's going to happen.
They say 50% of the population is going to have to deal with an elderly parent and the care of them. Now, what did you see in your mom that makes you think about your process in the day that your sons are there to help you?
This is a interesting subject with my wife, not so much my kids. My kids know I'm nuts. My wife knows I'm nuts, but wishes I wasn't, and still trying to change me. But I've actually got a death plan written out. If something happens to me, here's what you guys do. Here's what I'd like to have done. I do have a really cool playlist for my funeral.
I got to start one of those.
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
I've got actually the event set up. because I don't believe it's a mourning. I believe it's a celebration of life, and I had a pretty damn good life, so let's celebrate it. So you guys will be invited. You're on a list.
Okay.
There will be a band. There'll be great food. It's going to be an event. But the one thing I did learn, especially like when my dad passed, was that everybody talks about these things, but nobody really embraces it in order to set the plan up, right? So especially, I remember in the older days, Grandma, Grandpa, Mom, and Dad would go and they'd buy a cemetery plot, right? And they would do a few things that would kind of set the wheels in motion, but not all the wheels. And then there's an event, and then you're kind of scrambling for what to do. So as I said, my wife knows I'm nuts. My kids kind of think I'm nuts. That why would you plan this? I'm like, so you don't have to. You know, this doesn't have to be a big decision. This doesn't have to be, oh my God, what do we do now? Simply follow the playbook. Yeah. Everybody will have fun. It'll be a party. We'll have a good time. Yeah. Don't worry about it.
And nobody has to ask, what would Gary do? They know.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. So.
Do you, since your mom struggled with change, do you naturally struggle with change?
No, not at all.
Not at all?
No. I moved here from, my wife and I have moved, I think, 8 times to various residences in 2 different states. She absolutely hates change from day one. And the way I realized was she's a lot like my mom. My wife absolutely hates change. So when a decision had to be made, I would make the decision, which would upset her. But knowing that, as I said, like with my mom, if it's the right decision for her and us, it'll work out at the end one way or another. So every time I've made a change and we moved, my wife would go kicking and screaming. She would cry for 3 months that we moved to another residence or another state. And after about 3 months, she would be all smiles saying, this is the best thing we've ever done. So I learned from that, the same thing with my mom is moving her into that independent living was the best thing she had ever done since my dad died. She's happy. She's got friends. She eats well. She plays cards. She can have alone time if she wants. And she's living a really, really, really happy life in a place that she never thought she would be. It's a shame it took a catastrophic event to get there. But, it just kind of reshaped the way I think about trying to convince somebody of what would be better for them, looking from the outside in order to look at the situation through their eyes and the reason why they don't think that's a good idea and try to portray it in a different light, because at the end of the day, it's a better situation for them. And especially like we talked about parents is no matter how many times that I've talked to folks about helping their parents, it always comes down to don't tell me I used to wipe your butt. And yeah. I get it.
Yeah.
But tables have turned. Now I'm wiping your butt.
Yeah.
So, let's agree we've changed roles and be happy with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, one thing that Eric and I always try to ask guests is one of the reasons we come up with the idea of the decision is often we are in a situation in a forum where someone is sharing a challenge they're having in the business. They share the challenge with their forum and they do a deep dive and they don't do anything with it. They don't make a decision. And next year comes around and guess what? You're hearing the story again. Do you have a decision that you need to make that you are struggling with?
Not any longer.
Not any longer. What was the decision?
At this point, I really can't tell you because of non-disclosures.
Got it. Understood.
If we chat again next year, you'll know about it. But with that being said, it was a decision that I kind of pondered. I'm very much the way I'm wired, a get it done guy. If I know something has to be done, I simply just go do it. I found out through my life that staying in the middle of the road is a really bad place to be. I've crossed the road many times, realized I moved to the wrong side and then I have to move back. But I've never been one to stand in the middle of the road. I've seen too many people do that and get run over by the bus. So my forum has been really, really instrumental in shaping not only my business, but also my personal life, as I just shared with you, in that if we discuss something and we share experiences, as soon as that forum meeting is over, there's action to be taken. One of the reasons why is I don't like waking up at 2 a.m. rehashing it again. So I'd rather just solve it. Even if it's solved wrong, I can rehash it again. But not solving it, then you're up at 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'd rather start crossing these off the list.
Yeah, I wish I struggle with the final decision and wish I had I guess I had more courage by making a bold decision that has consequences associated with. My natural instinct is I want to be liked, which is a terrible thing at the end of the day, because it does keep you from making the right decisions a lot by having this need to do that. And so I found myself practicing hard decisions or hard conversations with random people just because it's a good way to practice, because a stranger that maybe does something wrong, you can confront them, and it's actually is very helpful to do some practice with it. But do you have when is enough for you to make you make a decision? Are you just strong enough to go, we're going to do it this way? Are you that resolute in your decision making?
In a lot of situations, yes. But what I always go back to, I had a really difficult decision back when I was 22. And I was in the business. It was a Snap-on tool business. The business was running fine. My head was not running fine. And so I had to get rid of the business, and it just depressed me. So I had a suggestion from a friend of mine to take a Dale Carnegie course. I went ahead and took the course at the age of 22. I was so enamored with it that I went back to teach the course in Buffalo for 3 years till I moved. And then I was an assistant, a graduate assistant teacher here in Nashville. And I would be with the program today until they kicked me out. I was going through instruction to be a full-fledged a Carnegie instructor. And at that time, the organization decided that they wanted to take the organization to another level, to have it be a college accredited class. And therefore, the instructors had to have a 4-year degree, which I do not. So I had to leave the program, which I completely understand business, and I get it. But what that organization taught me was ways to handle situations and problems. Probably one of the best books written by Dale Carnegie was How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. And believe it or not, it sits on my shelf. And when a difficult situation comes up, I simply pull the book back out, read back on through it, and every answer I've needed to make appeared in the book.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. Really powerful book. Simple.
What make it simple for me.
Okay.
How could I take that into practice right now?
So in the book, I think there's 10 or 12 chapters with different principles. So the first thing is, okay, what's the worst that could happen? What's the absolute worst that could happen if you make a decision this way or that way? And then write down the worst that could happen. Get your mind around how you're going to go ahead and deal with the absolute worst. And if you can deal with the worst, you can deal with anything less than that.
I was listening to this podcast that's it's gotten really popular. Like, it's called My First Million. It was started by the guys who started The Hustle, which is a daily email. And he talked about this. He called it the decision register. And he's got these 12 questions. I thought I'd share that here because we're talking about decision making. And, the decision causes us worry, causes us stress. So he has, number one, what is the decision? And then what is the alternative, right? What are the feelings around the decision, right? Which that's one of the questions when you do a deep dive is, when you're getting coached in a presentation for a deep dive, getting that is always helpful to understand. Well, how do you feel about it? How long have you been thinking about it? Right? Who or what tipped you over the edge in this decision? What are the secondary benefits of whatever the decision would be? If I took away all the secondary benefits, would I still make the decision? Number 8, why am I right? The upsides of being right. And then why am I wrong? What are the downsides of being wrong? And then number 10, what is the follow-up decision to make this action successful? Number 11, how do you predict this will play out? Number 12, what date will you revisit this and set the date? Which is, I guess, set the date would be pick a time that this decision needs to be made, kind of force yourself. But anything that you would add to do that with the frame of mind of EO, like how can EO be that extra component to the decision-making process? Because I think naturally what the forum does give you is the experience share to play out a decision you're about to make, because someone's in that room is probably an experience that before you have, right?
What I've experienced so far in EO has been absolutely amazing, not just in forum, but in the entire 350 plus members that we have, also globally. On large decisions or decisions that I really had no background to go ahead and get information to make this decision. What amazed me is every time I sent it out there to the EO Google groups, it blew my mind that within 10 minutes, I would get 20 to 30 responses, which weren't just the, hey, yeah, I feel for you. The responses were, hey, give me a call. Here's the guy you want to talk to. Here's the reasons why. And I realized that there's 350 plus members. Somebody has had that situation. We're really not that unique.
We sure do think we are.
Oh, yeah.
And our business is so special.
Oh, yeah.
We need a reminder every now and then. Yeah.
Exactly. And there's 350 other people in this group. If somebody doesn't have that experience in your forum that has gone through what you are going through or need to go through. And I've never, ever experienced anybody in this organization that was not willing to share that experience. So I'm just enamored by the organization that there are that many really, really true people that want to help each other. It's been an amazing experience.
If you could go back in time and jump into EO again, knowing what you know now, what experience share would you give that person to help them have a better experience in EO?
Get involved as much as you can. Go to every social event you can. Go to every learning event you can. I'm going for the first time down to the Nerve in Tampa this fall. I've talked to some EO members and some of my forum members that have gone to the some of the global summits. At times, it looks like, well, it's just a time suck and a paid for write-off vacation. But what I've learned of all the people that you're going to network with that can help, at the same time, all the people you're going to network with that you can help with your experiences, which sometimes is even more gratifying than getting the help. For anybody getting in the organization, I would recommend to get as involved as you possibly can. With constraints, I understand your family and your marriage and your other social activities, but don't miss out, because that's where the real gist of EO is those networking experiences. And there are so many genuine people that you've not met yet. Shame on you if you didn't meet them.
I hear the excuse, well, I'm going to have to spend $2,000 or $3,000 to go do this and take a few days. And my response is always, what if you get that one thing that transforms your business? That money and that time spent will disappear in a heartbeat. And it's happened to me, and Nerve changed my life. It really got me outside the chapter many years ago and experiencing other things. So I can't wait to hear what you
and what's wild about that too is a lot of the things that you learn, you already knew, but you got hit with the information when it was the right time to get hit. And then you actually because a lot of times you go learn something and we never take any action on it.
Yeah, like this book that Gary's talking about. Now I've got to buy another book, like what we were talking about before the show started. More space on the. I'm gonna have to build some more bookshelves. You know a guy?
I know a guy.
More reading. Hey, Gary, thank you so much for your time and energy with us today.
Thanks for the invite.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric, for joining us as well.
Thank you.
And if you are a Nashville entrepreneur interested in EO, Entrepreneur Organization, please visit eonashville.com. Inquire, come to one of our events, meet some of our friendly folks who are in the entrepreneur community. We would love to invite you to an event to see if we are a fit for you. And if you hear and see what we do and it seems to appeal to you and you want to grow as a person and an entrepreneur, please let us know. We'd love to have you. Thanks for watching and have a fantastic rest of the week.
Thanks for listening to the Decision Podcast by Nashville EO. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.